Andrews, better known as Bob Andrews, and sometimes referred to as Wild Bob. And this is docile Ronnie over here on my right, you know, and he's about as docile as that old bull I threw down in the pasture that time when he got up. He was some kind of ill and angry.
They tend to do that when you mistreat them.
We saw one stretched out in the field of sun in it this morning. I said, if you'd stand up, I think time I'll go over and throw him right on the ground.
I told you about that guy that had that there bull after him in the cow pasture that time, didn't I?
I don't think so.
This guy's going up the road and he saw this fella over there. And there's a bull after him.
Right.
He's running over through there and the bull is about to get to him, and there was a hole there in the ground, and the old boy jumped in that hole, and that bull went by him. No sooner that bull got by him and that guy jumped back out of that hole and took off running, and the bull took after him again. He circled around, went back in that hole. Well, this guy's there watching this going on, you know. That went on 2 or 3 times. Finally, that guy come out of that hole, and the bull took off after him again. He said, "Why don't you stay in the hole?" And the guy said, "There's a bear in the hole."
I guess the lesser of two evils.
He was trying to get ahead of one of them far enough to get away from
The
him.
lesser of two evils.
If he could have got them together, he'd have been all right. You heard about the guys that was crossing the field, and they'd been played basketball, and they got their sneakers thrown across their shoulder, you know, and there's this here bear gets after them. Well, they're just running, and this one guy just stops and sits down and starts changing his shoes and putting his tennis shoes on. This other guy says, "What's the matter, you? Them things can run 30 miles an hour. You can't outrun that bear." And the guy said, "I don't have to outrun that bear. I just got to outrun you."
That's about the truth. Well, I know you've heard the one, and most people probably listening have heard the one about these city boys riding out in the country and saw this guy plowing this mule. And they said, "Let's just stop and have some fun out of this guy." So they stopped there, and they was giving him a hard time about being an old country boy and everything. And they pulled out a pistol and they says, "Can you dance?" He says, "Oh, no." Fired his. He said, "Well, I reckon I can." He danced a little jig. And they fired it up. They just laughing like all get out, you know, and pow, pow, pow. All of a sudden, they run out of bullets. He got his shotgun. He says, "You boys ever thought about kissing a mule in the rear end?" They said, "No, but we always thought we wanted to."
You know, back several years ago, there wasn't near as much traffic on the lake then as there is now. But there was an old man had been over there in the forks of the river, had a little old John boat, and he'd been over there squirrel hunting.
Right.
Well, he'd up in the middle of the day, he's done squirrel hunting. He's going back in. He come and put in over at Norris Dam, and he went over to the forks of the river. Well, he's going out through there, and these 2 guys come through there with this pretty sharp little boat, and they was a drinking a little, and they got out there and they went to circling the old man, throwing waves at him in his boat and laughing at him. And whenever they come around that 3rd time, he shot a hole in the side of the boat with his shotgun. Well, they just shut down, went to bailing water, and he just putted right along. And whenever they finally got into the dam or the dock, which was the closest one, when they got enough water bailed out and got over there, the game warden was sitting there waiting on them, took them to jail. Old man done blowed a hole in the boat and got him put in jail too.
I thought that would have been poetic justice. I would have liked that. And then you were telling me about the game warden that somebody creased his.
Oh yeah.
Creased his hat.
Yeah, he killed some dogs. There's an old man lived over there, and whenever they took all that property, they was a family or 2 lived there in the forks of the river, over Chuck Swan, and I don't know whether they just stayed till they died off and then TVA bought their land or what, but there was a family or two lived over there even after the lake come up. And that old man over there, I think his name was Henniger, he had a dog over there, a hunting dog, and the dog was a running deer, and Bob Russell shot his dog.
Russell was a game warden.
Yep.
Okay.
Henniger was up on he went out to kill Bob Russell. Bob had this speedboat, you know. He'd go zipping up and down the lake. He's the only game warden they had. And he was going up the lake, and Henniger went out there to kill him. And he shot at Russell from the top of the hill up there, and shot a hole in his hat and just cut a strip of hair. He just cut a strip of hair up and off of his head there.
Right.
And he thought, well, you know, I've killed him or I ain't, but I'm done. And he went on.
Right.
And Bob, nobody would tell him who shot at him.
Right.
But he was a little more cautious about killing dogs after that because he knew who had shot at him.
Well, I don't know what. That wouldn't have been poetic justice if he'd hit him, you know. Hit him good, you know. I'm not advocating killing any game wardens. I'm also not in favor of killing dogs.
You know, we had a dog that was he was a stock dog. He's part English Shepherd and part Collie. And he was a good stock dog and a good family dog. He kept me from getting snake bit one time, killed a snake, knocked me down to get to it. But he would run some deer, but my dad never would hunt him because he didn't want him killed for it, you know. And Bob come by there one time talking to my daddy, said something about that dog, and Pop said, well, now listen, Bob, that dog he'll run deer, but I don't want him killed. Bob said, I ain't gonna kill that dog. Said, don't you ever miss him? Don't he go away for a day or two sometimes? He said, yeah, he'll wander off for a day or two, but he always comes back. And said, Bob said, well, I've been coming by and loading that dog up and taking him hunting. And I ain't gonna bother him, he's too good a dog. But he's a barring the dog.
Without telling anybody.
Yeah.
How about that? Well, a lot of funny things happen in your lifetime, and a lot of times they're not remarkable until you've looked back on them after a few years.
Yeah, and realize you lived through it.
Right. How did I get through this? But you know, I've lived through a lot of problems in this country, and starting with the Great Depression, and going through the Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War, the incursions into the Mideast, all that time, and of course eventually Vietnam and Desert Storm and all the other wars that we've had. But you know, we're fighting a bigger war here in this country, I think, than anything we've ever fought. And that is simply stated, our government promoting laziness. And I'll give you an illustration. I don't know, has there been anything, any moves or anything made toward requiring people that receive government assistance checks and food stamps and/or food stamps having to be tested for drugs?
Not that I know of.
Has there been anything said whether it would be legal or illegal or unconstitutional, or has there been any talk about that?
Well, they tried to get that up, but I don't think it passed. And of course, the ACLU and all them people's out there fighting it because it discriminates against poor people.
You mean there's only poor people that do drugs?
Yeah, I guess so. You know, you can be poor in America and be considered rich in 95% of the rest of the world.
Oh, no doubt. Well, let me tell you the reason. I know a family that out of 8 children, 5 of them are on government assistance. Out of the 8 children that are on government assistance, out of 5 children that are on government assistance, 5 of them are on drugs. And
It's hard to pay for them things if you ain't got the money, so they need all the help they can get.
But of the 5 that are on drugs and government assistance and food stamps, they spend their money they get the first of each month on drugs. They sell their food stamps and buy drugs. Now, in some instances, they're buying more drugs than they use, and they turn around and sell it. I know one guy who gets 5 whether cottons or oxycordones or what it is a day that the doctor prescribes for him to use. He's supposed to have a back problem. He takes 2 of them and sells 3 of them and has $2,700 a month coming in off those drugs that the government gives him.
Well, that's that much money we don't have to spend on him.
Well, that's actually, he's spending it, and there's tax dollars, that sort of thing. But the government is providing what he is selling.
They ought to mark it up a little and take the money.
Right. Well, then in this family of 8, 5 of them on drugs, by the 3rd or 4th of the month, all the food stamps are gone, all the money is spent, and your good-intentioned agencies are down there collecting money on the corner to support these people.
I don't want to knock good intentions and good effort and all that, but the mail carriers were collecting food a Saturday. I think it'd be awful hard to be starving if you got any sense or any get up. Now, I don't, people that are disabled or they're mentally incapable of realizing what's going on, I exempt people like that, but we've got plenty of network to take care of them. I think whenever you give somebody food so they can sell their food stamps, you're just hurting yourself.
Well,
twice.
You've got Meals on Wheels. You've got all sorts of agencies that supply food and
you've got churches, you've got food banks, and you've got free meals. You can go get a free meal 2 or 3 times a week if you know where to go.
Right. Well, I had an episode today. I had to terminate somebody up there. All right, and the one I terminated wanted to borrow some money. Said she had the day off and she wanted to go have a good time. And she wanted to ride over to somebody's house. Well, called people 2 or 3 times, and they were either so peeled up or so dumb they didn't even know what road they lived on. I'm serious. They had to describe the area around it. What's house number? Don't know. What's the name of that road? Don't know. They didn't know. I finally found it. And it was the brother living in an abandoned house with no water, no electricity, no sewer, no nothing.
He ought to go to Detroit. He'd get a big spread up there.
Yeah. All right. And I told that person, I said, I said, I told you I'd try to work you as long as you were improving yourself. I said to take off on your day off and borrow money so you can go pop pills with your brother. I said, to me, it's not an improvement in your life. And I'm not willing to help you provide a living to continue doing what you've done most of your life. I said, we will just have to part company today. And it wasn't too long I got back, and the brother called me, making threats against me. I told him, I said, buddy, I said, I ain't hard to find if you're looking for me. I said, if you wasn't so sorry, you might would have some transportation to come up here. But I said, you're too sorry to even own any transportation.
Have to walk down here and whoop you, won't
Right, well, he'd be so tired from walking up here, then I could whip him. So, I really feel that we need to drug test everyone that receives government assistance. Now, it might be a varying type test when you're talking about somebody 70, 80, 90 years old, you know. I don't mean that you're going to let them slide on doing drugs, but as far as having to come out and get a test and that sort of thing. I think all these people who are supposedly disabled.
You know, they just keep adding to the disabled roll.
Oh yeah, well you know what did March that they created 80,000 new jobs and put 81,000 people on disability.
Well, you know, they're predicting, the Congressional Budget Office is predicting a plunge in the deficit this year. And that's the way they described it. It's just, I read it in the Washington Post. Washington Post.
Yeah.
There's another one too, but the Washington Post, that it had just been you know, everything was recovering so well. It had dropped we're going to drop $200 billion, the deficit.
In the first quarter?
No, this year.
Oh.
And be down to only $680 billion. In other words, we're still, if it works the way they say it's going to, we'll still spend 680,000 more than we take in. Well, and they call that a recovery.
Now me, you know, I know there's fancy math and new economic ways of looking at things, and that matter of fact, and by say deficit spending $500 million, say a year, then that's going to create tax-wise almost that much money by the time it gets through all the ringer. But if they don't put a stop to the deficit, you got to stop deficit spending. Then once you stop spending more than you're taking in, then you can start working on your debt.
Well, there ain't no way you can grow an economy through government spending, because the only place they can get money is to take it from somebody. Sure. So they take it with one hand and give it back with the other, and you're back where you started.
And then they've got all that loose motion in between where they have to pay everybody's uncle and brother to administer it, you know.
And another thing, you can print your own money like they're doing now. You can make money out of nothing and put it in the economy, and you get a little hump where everybody's better off till prices catch up with the money supply, and then you're worse off because the money you had saved ain't worth as much as it used to be.
Exactly right. And
I don't know why people don't understand a little common sense.
No, if common sense was so common, there'd be more of it.
Well, I guess that's right too. You know, there's one thing you can depend on, though. That's Dixie Concrete.
I guarantee you. I see them. I can depend on them for a number of reasons. Good quality, hardest concrete known to man, large variety of supplies from septic tanks to reinforcing blocks and re-rods and They even give you enough sand for your cat sandbox if you want.
And they got them big yaller trucks that goes around and around while they're going up and down the road and on their side of the road.
Yeah, on their side of the road.
Dick's Concrete, and it's time to be start thinking about it. You better catch it right now. It's going to be too hot to work in another 2 weeks.
You reckon? It's
supposed to be 85 tomorrow.
Right, 84.
84. Well,
84,
we won't argue. What's 1 degree among family?
There's 1 degree of myself among global warming now. That's a big, I mean, if it's going up, that's a big factor now. The fact that it dropped 0.3% last year, do you know it dropped that much?
No.
0.3% Fahrenheit.
1 degree.
Well, 0.3 degree Fahrenheit. I mean, that didn't even bring a response.
I tried for a long time to get Al Gore to come on our show, and finally Bob found out what was going on, and he got me to leave him alone. He pointed out that if we was to get Al Gore in here, we'd freeze to death.
Right, yeah, we would.
Everywhere he makes a speech, they have to wear overcoats.
Every time he made a speech about global warming, they had a blooming blizzard.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Well, now, of course, you know they've changed it to climate change.
Yeah, and they've tried on climate chaos. Well, because there was going up and down both, and they could throw in a hurricane and tornado, and they couldn't get these here
models.
They couldn't get these here people that were really the real meteorologists wouldn't agree that there was any more hurricanes than there'd ever been.
Right.
But you know, the thing about it is, there's a whole lot better reporting services, and one reason we have more hurricanes is because you've got people out there in the middle of the ocean hunting them when you used to didn't have anybody out there, and if they went out in a hurricane, sometimes they didn't come back and talk about it.
Right, yeah, true. And a lot of times back when I was a young man, if you had one coming up across Cuba, you didn't know it, and if it turned and missed the mainland, we never knew it existed, you know. Of course, I was out on P Island one time, which is one of the Outer Bank Islands, and I was backed in toward the ocean, and I had a tent. I had a Ford Chateau Club wagon, a 1-ton job, and I had a tent out the back of it. It had 4 children, and I had a big old MX motorcycle that I almost got put in jail for riding on them sand dunes. And this storm come up, and I don't know who that was that come around, told us we had to get off the island. And it blew the tent down. I mean, I jumped out right then. It blew the tent down before I get around the back of the van. We finally got it stuck in there, and the young'uns in there, and so help me, it was picking the rear end of that 1-ton wagon up and bouncing it up and down.
Yeah.
And so
they kind of waited a little late to tell you, didn't they?
Yeah, they come around a little bit late, you know, and we took off, left, and we just, I think that was on a Sunday, I think we just went on home. We didn't.
So they have a bridge or a ferry?
Had a bridge on this one, yeah. And, but it was a slapping up against pretty high when we went across that bridge. And it wasn't too many months after that when that barge broke loose, took that bridge out.
You didn't have anything to do with tying that barge up?
No, I didn't tie that barge up. No, it wasn't me.
Well, we know who didn't tie it up now, don't we?
I didn't tie it. I wouldn't even attempt to tie it up. But yeah, it broke loose, and it just took that bridge completely out. Pretty good sized boy. Boy, we were out. I don't know if you've ever been down to Carolina Beach.
Where's that at?
That's out from Wilmington.
Yeah. Down below Emerald Isle.
Yeah, they got a big old motel there on the end of the waterway called the Blockade Runner. And we used to go out and flounder gig in the waterway there, and we'd always know where we were because we'd see the big sign on the Blockade Runner, you know. Of course, we didn't get that disoriented anyhow. It wasn't that big a body of water. But we had taken a boat, and we had taken camping poles, and we bent them down and put lights right over the end of them, and on the boat where we could push the boat along ahead of us, and we could see if there's a flounder up behind the light, then we'd just hold the boat and walk up beside it and gig it, you know. Worked real well. So we were out there one night, and here come a big line of barges being pushed by a tugboat.
Uh-oh.
Well, we had two of these boats out there. Me and my buddy, we took ours and we went up in this inlet. My other buddy was a little late. He was trying to make it, and one of them ripples hit, and one of them lights hit the water, flipped him all the way over. We thought he was going to never come up, but when he did, he had the cooler with a beer in his hand. He had the cooler and the beer in his hand. Well, the section from the line of barges pulled his boat into it and demolished it. You know, he managed to get away far enough that the suction didn't get him by pushing that keg of beer, that cooler of beer ahead.
I don't guess they paid for his boat, did they?
They never even knew they hit it. I mean, it's a big line of barges. They must have had 7 or 8 barges ahead of that tugboat that was being pushing it down through there. But we were sitting up there in the inlet, and that wave come up there, and when we come back down, we were sitting about 8 or 10 feet up on the dry land.
Well, did you have a fish fry?
Fish fry. Well, we got some flounder that night, yeah, and we ate fish the next day, and we boiled crabs, and then we steamed a bunch of oysters, you know, and
Boy, them steamed oysters is good.
oh, I'm telling you,
You're supposed to drink the juice when you get them.
Hey, I can eat almost a bushel of them things by myself.
You know, you boiled them, ain't you? Just boiled them.
Oh yeah.
And you strain the sand out of the water and
Right.
drink it.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I like them. Yeah, twist them old oysters right open, right down the hatch.
Well, I ain't done much ocean fishing, but I like the ocean because they don't know about me over there. I can get a bite on my hook.
The fish don't recognize you.
No, they don't know me. I can throw a hook in Norris Lake and he'll rust in two before I ever get a bite. I can throw one out there.
Get a bite.
Yeah, he'll get a bite over there before I can get reeled back in.
I'll never forget, I took a friend of mine down there with me. He'd never seen the ocean. And at that time they had, I believe, the longest pier on the East Coast there at Long Beach. And we walked out on the pier, and he would not turn loose of that rail.
Yeah.
Walking out there. He's walking like this, holding that rail. Of course, there's a big wide pier, as wide as this room, wide if not wider than this room. But he would not turn loose.
It probably wasn't that deep either, was it?
Not starting out. I mean, it went well on out there, and when the tide was in, I imagine it'd be pretty deep, you know. But he never would turn loose the guide rail, you know. And
Well, who builds them piers? Yeah.
Well, that was built by a private enterprise
And then they charge you to go out on it, or what?
Yeah, but they come in there with this grandiose idea, and they tore that pier down. They tore all, and they had a bunch of houses that belonged with the land for the pier, and they bought it, I think, paid $9 million for that piece of property and tore the pier down. They were going to put condominiums there.
Yeah.
In 2007.
That wasn't a good time to start putting in condominiums.
They never did get anything off the ground there. They still own a piece of bare ground there on the beach. That must be, they probably got 2 or 3 acres there, not all that much land, and $9 million in it, plus the demolition of the pier.
But the pier originally, what justified building it to start with? Did people pay to fish off that?
Yeah, that's what they built it for, was to people, and they charged them. And this, they always had a bait shop there, and a restaurant, and a little old gift shop, and everything. People had to go through to get to the pier, you know, and
it has to cost a pretty big bunch of money to put one of them things in.
Yeah, about that, because you had to drive those things in the.
Yeah, and just the cost of material. One of them poles would cost you $1,000.
What, one pole?
Yeah.
Not back when they built it, it would.
You bought any light poles lately?
I mean, back when they built that pier.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you can actually.
I bet you, sure enough, I bet you if you went to build one of them things now, that you would average $1,000 a pole to get it out there and get it drove in the ground.
Right. Probably, yeah, because they had to use a pretty heavy barge type vessel that had to anchor out there and drive them things in. And then on top of them, they had to build a treated wood structure. You know, they didn't, you know, where that pier was way out there and the water was like 25, 30 foot deep when the tide comes in. They just had poles that would stick up in the water when it's low tide, and then they built treated lumber superstructure on it. And so, yeah, well, let's see, I priced some 24-foot 6x6 treated. And I priced them at Lowe's, and I also priced them up here at the Cash and Carry. Maybe to come to me in a little bit what they cost, but they were right expensive.
You need some?
Huh?
You need some?
Not now, I don't want.
Richard can get them for you cheaper than you can get them anywhere.
Really?
Treated. Well, I can too, as far as that goes.
Treated.
Yeah.
Well,
did you see them two we had on that? See them two we had on that trailer right there we got for a fella the other day?
I didn't see that.
They was as pretty a 6x6 as I've ever seen. They was. You remember how long them things was, Ike? Them 6x6s. I'm gonna say. Well, they stuck over both ends of that trailer, and the trailer. I'm going to say they was 16, 18 feet long, but they may be longer than that.
Right.
I think they was.
Right. I may need something before too long where I'm going to build a little old mini house, and the hill goes down right steep, and I'm going to put it out, put it on.
Out that way?
Huh?
Out yonder?
Yeah. So yeah, man, I'm going to keep that in mind.
Them two I got them up there where I buy the metal. They sell them. Richard's got another place he gets them. They're about the same price, but you have to go to Oneida to get one of them, and they bring these others to me when they bring the metal.
Right.
If you get to needing any thing to work on your car with, you need to go up there and see Spradling up there across from IGA.
Up to see Randy up at Napa. Napa Auto Parts.
They've got parts for just about any kind of a machinery you'd want. I bet they can get bobbins for a sewing machine if you'll give them a new
I bet
detail.
so. I had a guy, I met him as he was going in there the other day. I said, go in there and tell Randy that I said that he had some parts for a 1938 Hupmobile. He said he went in there. He said, no, I don't have any parts, but I probably can get them for you.
Have them for you in the morning.
Say, when you want them, tomorrow?
Yeah, well.
That's Napa. They got connections, probably $250,000 automobile parts readily available on the computer that they can have in if they ain't got them, have them in there the next day. And then I don't know how many more parts they have available otherwise.
And they got a bunch of sitting up there on the shelf. 562-9406. Call them and ask them what they've got. Just tell me what all you got.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd say, have you got a day or two?
Yeah.
Good people, locally owned, right across from IGA on Central Avenue or Jacksboro Pike, Old Jacksboro Pike, right on the corner there, whatever you want to call it.
25W and 63.
Right. They're there, ready to serve you. They are there to help you. They don't go in there and make you feel like the idiot that I am, because I don't know what to call that little old trick of a dog that goes on top of that duplocky. So he explained it to me, get it for me at the right kind of price. If you hadn't got it, he'll have it here either that afternoon or the next morning.
Yeah, 562-9406. What's going on up at Wild Bob's place?
Well, Bob's got pretty good little inventory of stuff, you know. I've got good baby items from pack and play little items for cribs.
Corn cribs?
Yeah, corn cribs. Oh, Channel 10 was promoting a cornhole tournament.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Okay.
And I believe it's going to be over at Dollywood or Gatlinburg. I can't remember where it was. But what it is, you have a little, looks like a little pillow, like about that big, square, full of corn. And you got a slanted board up there, slick board, and it's kind of like horseshoes. One stands down here and pitches to get it in that hole up there, and one stands there to pitch back at the other to get it in the hole. And you get points on how many you get. 4 or 5 bags to throw, and you get points on how many you get in there.
So are you going to enter?
It's called a cornhole tournament.
Are you going to enter?
Well, not once I found out what it was. I did have some designs on it when they first announced it, but
yeah, I wondered about that myself. Good.
It's going to be this weekend.
Shame to waste good seed corn, though. Shame to waste good seed corn.
Yes, that's right. It's going to be this weekend, and check with Channel 10. They'll let you know when it's coming up, and they got some other festivities involved other than just the corn. There's a National Cornhole Association, and
well, that's good to know. We gotta have these events sanctioned.
If it's ain't sanctioned,
ACA sanctioned tournaments, American Cornhole Association.
You thought I was kidding you, didn't you?
No, I didn't doubt it. They're having a big cornhole tournament up in Cincinnati.
How to run a cornhole tournament.
Yeah, here's a big cornhole tournament in Cincinnati. Professional players. Professional players. I didn't know they had professional players.
Well, we might, if we get practices up, they could draft us.
Well.
How would you like
they could shoot us too.
How would you like to be drafted into the Cornhole Association?
I wanted to join the Cornhole Association, the American Cornhole Association.
That's one I'd want to be drafted into.
Let's see how you run a cornhole tournament. Step 1, choose when and where. Now, this is for fools. Choose when and where the tournament will be held. Now, they had to write that down.
Be sure they would have violated some government regulation.
Be sure to take into consideration the number of players and the space the boards will take up. Also consider food and restroom accommodations. Determine the rules of the tournament in advance and make sure the rules are discussed with all players before the tournament begins. This step 2, decide if you will be running a single elimination, double elimination, or round robin tournament. Your decision should be influenced by the number of players that are planning to attend and also the time allotted for the tournament. Step 3, Once you have decided on the type of tournament you will be running, you need to print the tournament brackets. Step 4, this is getting complicated.
Yeah.
Once the day of the tournament has arrived and all the players are gathered, you will need to decide how the teams are going to be formed. Boy.
You know, I'm sure I could run one of them cornhole associations if I can run a turkey shoot and have 55, 60, maybe 75 drunks. I mean, flat plastered. I run around there with shotguns. So drunk in a lot of instances, instead of shooting a target, they'd shoot my numbers down up above the target.
I gotta remember not to come to any of your shooting matches.
I used to have a raunchy bunch come to that turkey shoot that I held, and I had a big old barn, and if it started raining, I had it where we could get in the barn and shoot, you know. And of course, the guy was pulling the target, he wasn't staying too dry, but the shooters, I tell you had to be careful pulling them targets. You had to make sure everybody had shot, because some drunk sat there fiddling with his gun, start pulling them targets, and all of a sudden, balloom! That's the one.
What did you use for targets?
Oh, we had targets we bought.
Oh boy.
Oh, we were uptown, you know.
No, not any used paper plates from down at the Quickie Drive-In.
And you had to furnish the shells, because they'd cut them shells open and they'd fill them full with so many shots that when they shot, there wasn't nothing left of the target. You know, there wasn't nothing hanging but the four corners. You know.
Fella told me what you done was you oiled the barrel of your gun real good, and that would hold the shot together longer.
Possibly.
And it'd give you,
Right,
less
possibly.
spread.
Right.
That way you go up there to count the holes in the target, and it's about that big. You say 1.
Oh, I tell you, there's been more arguments I've had to settle over them red letter Winchesters and who had the best gun and all that sort of thing.
You don't want to get in an argument with a bunch of drunk target shooters.
I had two staring one another down with pistols one night. One had a .357, the other one had a .38, and I just walked up and put my finger in both barrels. I said, now boys, I know I'm going to lose a finger if y'all pull these triggers. But I said, you're going to get hurt too. And I said, the best thing to do is just put, or I'll use a little bit sleety of the ladies, put it into your pocket, you know. And yeah, I've seen a few things in my day and time.
Well, I bet you never did see anything like Wilson's Petroleum Company down there in the middle of the road.
I'll tell you, I didn't think that there was but one kind of propane.
So you got into Wilson's
and they
37 varieties,
48 varieties.
48.
Yeah.
One for each state in the continental United States.
Said that right, and he was going to do 50, but he said he didn't think we should have took Alaska or Hawaii in.
No, we ought to have left Alaska alone, and we certainly didn't need Hawaii.
No.
They need us worse than we needed them.
You're right. Yeah, I know that. And so 48 varieties. I'm getting ready to go get me a tank right now. You know, I've been...
Well, you're going to have to hurry.
I'm not today.
Oh.
You know, I've been doing a little cooking in my concession stand. You just for local consumption.
Yeah, I hear you're in the bean and cornbread business.
Huh?
I hear you're in the bean and cornbread business.
Oh, man. You have to... Shirley probably call tomorrow night and tell you about that cornbread.
She done told me about it.
Has
yeah, on Facebook.
Think it was good?
Yeah, but she's disappointed there wasn't no beans.
I didn't have any beans that night. I just gave her a slab of cornbread. I got some good white beans up there, and I've got a good pot roast if you want something to eat. But the only problem with pot roast, I cooked onions in there.
Well, I don't know that.
Yeah.
562-5444 if you want something to cook your pot roast
Right,
on.
that's what I use, is Digger Wilson's.
Right in the middle of the road in Sawmill Holler.
Right, he's got it. You need something to grill out with, or you need something on these nippy mornings, you know. You got down a little bit chilly last night, night before last.
Frost night before last.
Yeah.
Here in the middle of May. This global warming is sure putting the garden on the fire. Stand still.
I don't know what we're going to do about that. I might have to start putting the long breeches on here in the summertime.
It warm. It's a big contrast from this morning and this evening, wasn't it?
Yeah. Did you see where the lake had froze up there in Minnesota, and the ice had pushed all the way up into a man's house, and it expanded like a glacier?
I heard something about that, but I didn't hear all of it, and I didn't see none of it.
It was up in Minnesota.
It destroyed his house, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, just like a glacier had moved across. It pushed the underpinning right on out from under it.
Well, you know, you can crack granite with frozen water.
Huh?
You can crack granite with frozen water.
That, yeah. And,
that's why they used to quarry that there, some of that stone.
What they would cut a groove in it and let the water do the rest.
And another thing they used to do, that marble, they used to drill it and drive pegs in it, and then wet the pegs and get them to swell, and it'd crack up marble.
Right, yeah.
You got to be wanting a rock out of the ground awful bad to do that, ain't you?
Yeah, they have, yeah. I got a lot of it out the hard way. And
you ever been over at Crab Orchard where they get that stone out, it's in layers and set there?
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
That's a big operation. Used to be a big thing. I don't know how it is now, how much of it they sell, but they used to sell a lot of that.
Some up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Put around my house.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to have full-time operation over there getting that stuff out, and it comes out in layers.
Yeah. Comes out just like it's laid down.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, you get some of it, you can run a whole run just like laying bricks. You don't have to move up and down too much. It'll all be the same thickness. It may not be the same width.
Right.
It'll be the same thickness, so you can build a wall out of it, and it gets you irregularity out of the way it's broke the other way, so you make a rock face on it.
Yeah, the operation down at Jacob's Quarry in North Carolina, which is down south of where I live, and they had big stone cutting equipment. They'd square it up for you, whatever you need.
You ever watched them saws that do this night and day?
Huh?
You ever watched them saws that do that night and day?
Yeah.
I went in a place over in Knoxville, or in South Knoxville, where they used to work marble. I guess they still do, but they had these here little narrow gauge tracks around through there, and they'd roll in a big old piece of stone that would be half as big as a car and way more. And they'd roll it in here, roll it down through here, and roll it back in this here little, look like a horse stable. And they'd turn the water on and get these things to swing, and it'd just work night and day. And they'd set it whatever thickness they wanted it.
Right.
He'd saw it into pieces, and then when they got it sawed in two, they moved it out and squared it up or whatever they needed to do with it and sold it.
I used to buy a lot of polished granite for tombstones, you know, and for the bases under your bronze memorials. And we got invited down to Star Granite in Georgia, and they put on quite a feed for us. You know, paid all of our expenses, and I mean, you know, just nicest hotel, stayed there, free meals and everything, you know, just to get us to buy their granite, you know. And I bought a lot of it from Star Granite.
Well, did you stock any for later use?
No, but let me tell you what I got in mind doing. You know, I'm kind of like the old lady who went to church. She didn't go too often, but she went once in a while, and she was coming through the line shaking hands with the preacher after the sermon was over. And he says, "Mary, it's so good to have you here." He says, "Honey, you know, at your age," says, I just wonder, says, don't you think it's about time you started thinking about the hereafter? She said, Lord, preacher, says, I do. Says, I think about it every day. He says, you do? She says, I sure do. Says, I get up in the morning, says, I can go from the kitchen to the living room, and the first thing I ask myself is, what am I hereafter? Well, at my age, you know, you never know when you're going to go, but I have in plans and work to build me a little mausoleum.
So we can come in and visit
well,
you if we're
put
still
television
around.
in there so I can watch Carolina basketball games. But aside from that, cost-wise, because if I don't go ahead and pay for it myself, my burial expense, then I have put the burden on somebody else. Like Paul says, I don't care what happens to me. They can do with me what they want to. Well, what they're saying is that somebody's going to have to do something with me. He ain't going to do nothing himself, you know. And so many times a man will not make any arrangements for his burial, and he'll die, and his wife, who probably never spent over $200 without asking him, is faced with $8, $10, $12, $14, $15,000 decision while she is least able to make those decisions. And of course, undertakers, they don't like to be called undertakers, they like to be called funeral directors. They are always certain to make sure that they never charge more than the family can afford.
Yeah.
Which means they're going to charge everything that the family can afford. But meanwhile, back to my mausoleum. Make a mausoleum, which is perfectly legal in the state of Tennessee and elsewhere, to be buried on your private property, either in the ground or in a mausoleum. You do not have to be embalmed. You do not have to have a vault. You do not have to have a casket. If you're buried in the ground, you do not have to have a vault. If you're buried in a mausoleum, you naturally don't have to have a vault, because the mausoleum is the vault. You do not have to have a casket. All you got to have is the body put in a body bag. I'm going to direct in my will that somebody, my relative, if they don't want to do it, get somebody to do it, to go to wherever I'll die, put me in a body bag, take me out there and put me in that mausoleum, seal me up.
How are you going to make this mausoleum?
I'm going to make it out of a local rock.
No concrete?
And Dixie concrete.
Okay. You could use them big blocks they've got and stack them around.
No, I'd like to be able to come out of that thing on Judgment Day, you know.
Well, they'll get you out.
They use Dixie concrete.
Well, let me recommend that you put a standing seam roof on it, because it'll do you as long as you need it. And I just know a guy can sell you the roofing material.
I'm serious about building a little mausoleum. I want to undertake it and do it myself, and I'm still healthy enough, you know, and I got the equipment to move the stone, whatever size I decide to use.
Are you going to put it out there next to the property line?
I thought of where the wind would blow and put me a vent up there where, as I decompose, my neighbor that I think so much I would get a good whiff of what's going on.
I recommend that. I hope I'm around to see it in 100 years from now.
I plan on outlasting him.
You might do it.
Yeah. Well, I try to stay healthy. I really do. I eat an awful lot of celery with either, sometimes I use some pimento cheese. Most of the times I use peanut butter in the celery. I always eat at least one stalk of celery a day with one or the other in it. I eat a lot of yogurt. I drink coffee. I do not drink any carbonated water. I mean, I got nothing against some water Coke. I just don't ever buy Cokes. I drink coffee. I drink milk. I drink some iced tea. And mostly I drink water. I eat a lot of celery, eat a lot of yogurt. I eat a lot of beans. I eat very little meat.
Well, there ain't nobody eats much meat anymore.
Not with the price, you know. I think the price of cattle hit its highest mark since 1942, adjusted for inflation.
Well, do you realize that if you could sell a cow off a piece at a time, you could live off of her for about 2 years?
You said that right. Well, you know, California got such high gas prices. They have such high taxes on it while it's in the ground. They got high taxes on the petroleum when it comes out, as it comes out of the ground. They have high taxes on it after it has come out of the ground. They have even higher taxes after it has been refined and goes into use. So there's no reason in the world that our government should be working an economic hardship on the people of this country in order to pursue an environmental agenda, which that agenda that they're working toward is counterproductive.
There's a fella told me, he's in the tar business, he told me it cost him $1,000 a month to get his tires disposed of.
Get his tires what?
Disposed of.
I don't doubt it.
I don't either. You ought to be allowed to shred them and bury them, or just burn them or something. I mean, they good combustible material there.
Well, no, let me mention something to you. You know, they're so careful not to let any oil get on the ground or anything. Well, out at the house, somehow or another, a tube of grease had got under some other debris, and it had come apart. It's a cardboard container it's in, even though it goes into a thing, and the grease had spilled out on the ground. I picked it up, and there was more earthworms working in that grease than there was anywhere else around.
Well, that was them our grease worms. You heard of grease monkeys, ain't you?
I could not believe the number of grease worms that was there.
Other places they've got grease monkeys.
Why?
But here, you know, we're kind of low class. We've got grease worms.
I couldn't believe it. I thought sure that it would kind of make the ground.
Well, they claim that their oil that they spilled down there in the Gulf, these things are coming along right behind it, just eating it up as fast as they could.
What was?
Organisms in the water.
Right, yeah.
It's a natural product. It bubbles up all the time.
Well, that's what I tell them. My daughter has been so much against fossilized fuel. I said, look, oil is natural. Oh, not when you take and change it and everything. I said, well, that's still the same stuff. And you know, I mentioned before, I don't think you can destroy the products that make oil. You know, you can take the heat out of it, but that's about it.
Well, if you add heat back to it in the right way, you can put it back together.
Probably putting it right back in there.
If you got to, you know, feeling a little down and out and think you might need a ride to the hospital, let me recommend Vital Care to you.
Right.
Vital Care, they got them there big old ambulances, and they run up and down the road and they take care of their customers. They're privately owned and they appreciate your business, and to prove that they're good at what they do, they are still in business without any government subsidy. They do it because people appreciate it.
They were not incubated.
No, they just well managed, and they care about their business.
They were not incubated, and
they'll even haul a man to the hospital when he's OD'd on tomato juice.
Right, now let me tell you one of the differences I say. Like I'm not throwing off on the ambulance drivers here in Campbell County. Lord have mercy, they are good people, just what we need here, and more of those people like that. But the government management of the ambulance business. Have you seen that neat little van ambulance that Vital Care runs around and uses?
I don't reckon.
That's like a one-ton van.
Yeah, I've seen that.
A one-ton van, and they use it whenever possible to lower the cost of operation, not only the cost of operation.
Well, that's the way they all used to be.
Huh?
That's the way they all used to be.
Yeah.
Before that, they were hearses.
And now, if you look, Campbell County's bought one of them big old ambulances, and they don't use it for everything. I think they use it to go to Hardee's for
Yeah.
breakfast.
Well, you can get more food in it.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, wow.
5629370.
That's it. That's Vital Care. If you got bad the murder juice, you call them.
I know it's hard to believe, but we've been on 1 hour right now, and we're going to go home.
Right.
See you tomorrow night on Channel 12.
Right.
Thank
we appreciate you.
See you, everybody.
Love you.